Hey, what's going on everybody? Chris here and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how to connect 1/4 inch RO tubing to the Neptune Systems DOS pump. So why on earth would you want to connect RO tubing to your Neptune DOS? The number one reason is going to probably be that you need longer runs of lines. Most likely to do something like an automatic water change setup, where you got to run water from your saltwater container up a floor or across the basement or wherever it is from your saltwater container to your tank, and run a drain line from your tank to a drain somewhere on the other side of the house. You could probably do that with the tubing that you can get from Neptune, which is right here, which does fit on the DOS. Obviously it's made for it, works well with it, but they only give you a very small length. You can buy longer lengths of this from Neptune, but I'm quite sure it's probably expensive just because it says Neptune on it. What you can do is use RO tubing. RO tubing is readily available at pretty much any hardware store or online and is relatively cheap to use. It's also nice and rigid, so when you do long runs of it, it's easily run through rafters or floorboards or wherever you need to hide it up and out of the way. It also doesn't kink as easily as the plastic tubing that Neptune gives you, although that is pretty rigid. It's not as flimsy as, say, vinyl tubing, but with RO tubing, you really don't have to worry about any kind of kinks unless you really forcibly kink it. Now, you can connect RO tubing directly to the DOS. It is possible. You can heat it up a little bit and get it to slide over the barb here and put the compression fitting on, but I found over time that eventually I end up getting air into the lines or they leak, and it just doesn't seem like it's that great of a connection. So there is a little bit of a workaround to get RO tubing to connect to the DOS, and with a slight little modification, I will show you how to get that done. So a couple things you're going to need to get this job done. First is obviously your DOS pump. Second, you're going to want to go online and find some of these John Guest fittings. These fittings are 1/8 inch pipe thread on one end and 1/4 inch push to connect on the other. I ended up buying a 10-pack off of Amazon for about $40. And if you look closely there at this bottom line, this PP number down here, that's the number you're going to want to go online and search for. You can go to Amazon, type that right in, and you should be able to find these. Like I said, I think it was just under $40 for this bag. This is a pack of 10. I know saltwateraquarium.com does sell them in packs of 4, but you do need 4 obviously to do your dose, and I think it was about $20. So, you know, a little cheaper just to buy the 10-pack. Also, you're going to need a roll of Teflon tape and a straight razor. So now that you've gathered all your materials, let's show you how to do the modification. First things first, you're going to want to remove the dose heads from the pump itself. It's easily done. You just grasp the sides, give it a little squeeze, and the heads come right off. Real simple, real easy. So now that you got your head off, go ahead and remove the compression nuts that are on the pump. Now you might think, okay, well this just threads right on here just like this, which it does. The fittings will thread directly on there without any modification, but the issue that you run into is when you try to put the RO tubing in, the hose barb area here is actually too long in the fitting and will not allow the RO tubing to seat all the way into the fitting. This part actually ends up extending all the way into the push connect part, and the hose won't go in there all the way. So we need to make a slight little modification to the DOS head. So this is where the straight razor comes in handy. So what you're going to want to do is take your straight razor and come up probably just a little, about halfway up the nozzle, and just work your way down and push that off and snip the tip. As you can see right there. Do that to the other side. You can work it side to side for just a little bit, give it a little bit of pressure, and it'll just come right off. So now what this is going to do is this is going to enable the John Guest fitting to go all the way on here and the RO tubing to be inserted into the push connect part without hitting the tip here. So that's really the only modification you need to do. Now just make sure when you cut these off, do use a tubing cutter, or like I used, a straight razor. You don't want to use scissors or snips or anything, because you could crush this plastic tubing and cause flow issues, calibration issues, stuff like that. So you don't want to take that chance on screwing that up. Just use like I said, a straight razor blade. Just pretty much cuts right through it. You just apply a little pressure, a little back and forth, and it comes right off. Once you've got that done, go ahead and take a piece of Teflon tape, I already pre-cut a couple pieces about 3-4 inches long, and go ahead and wrap them around the threads. Of course, this is easier said than done. Sometimes I hate Teflon tape. Good 3-4 wraps around the threads. Make sure it's nice and tight. Make sure that you're not covering the hole in any way. And also, when you're doing Teflon tape, if you've never done Teflon tape before, make sure you wrap it the same direction that you're going to thread the fitting on, so basically clockwise, so that when you thread this on, it's not going to remove the tape. At that point, you can just go ahead and thread on your fitting. Make sure not to cross thread it, make sure it goes straight before you really start twisting it down. Now you can just hand tight these. You do not need to get a pair of pliers or anything on them, but I just turn it basically until it bottoms out on the plastic here, and that should create a nice airtight good seal. You can go ahead and do it to the other side. Again, making sure not to cover the hole, and then simply thread on your John Guest fitting. And now your Neptune DOS is modified. All right, there you have it, your modified Neptune DOS to accept 1/4 inch RO tubing. So now that you've got all your 4 fittings on, all you got to do is run your length of tubing measure and voila, push to connect, and the DOS is ready to go. It's a lot better option in my opinion than using the tubing that they supply with it. And also, when you need to change your DOS heads, all you got to do is unscrew the fittings, take the new heads, snip the tip, put some Teflon on, and put the John Guest fittings back onto your new DOS heads when it comes time to change those out. All in all, it's a pretty easy upgrade to do to the pump. The hardest part about the pump, in my personal opinion, is putting the Teflon tape on, because I hate putting on Teflon tape. I always struggle with it to get the stick on the threads and to get it go on evenly. You could use a Teflon paste if you wanted to. It might make it a little easier, but that stuff's messy as hell. I'd rather deal with the tape than the mess that Teflon paste makes. So if you have a DOS pump, or if you just got one this past holiday season and you want to do an easy way to connect RO tubing to your DOS pump, you know, check out this method. It's a great way to go. Definitely, this is my second DOS pump that I'm doing this to. The first one I have behind me on the wall there, already connected to RO tubing. This one I'm actually going to be using to DOS 2-part. So if this is your first time to the channel, please feel free to click the subscribe buttons, click the like button if you like the video, hit the bell button if you want to see more, and thanks so much for watching, and we will see you on the next video.